When the power dies, the dark brings things you're not meant to see. Some of them are already watching.
Have you ever felt unseen eyes watching you in the dark? Welcome to Nightfall Crypt, where shadows whisper, the unknown lingers, and every story is waiting for you to listen, if you dare.
The winds howled like tortured spirits, rattling the stained glass windows of St. Augustine's Church. Hurricane Gustav had turned the world outside into a chaotic mess of slashing rain and bending trees. But inside the church, an eerie silence settled over the evacuees. The air was thick, stagnant, musty, like the breath of something long forgotten. Without electricity, the halls stretched into infinite darkness, and the only sound was the occasional creak of shifting wood. I was there with my friend Jake and his family. We had claimed one of the smaller rooms in the back, far from the main congregation, where an entire nursing home's worth of elderly evacuees had been set up in cots. They barely made a sound. The quiet was unsettling, unnatural, more like a waiting room for the dead than a shelter for the living. That night, long after the last murmurs of conversation had died down, Jake and I decided to make a trip to the bathroom. The power outage meant we had to navigate by flashlight. The church's bathroom was down several winding halls, set apart from the sleeping areas. It was large, the kind of place you'd find in an elementary school. Several stalls, a trough urinal, and an eerie emptiness that stretched beyond our beams of light. The moment we stepped into the hallway, the air changed. It felt heavier, charged with something unseen. The storm outside had silenced the world, but in that stillness, something else lurked. We walked cautiously, our footsteps muffled by the old carpet. As we turned a corner, our flashlight beam swept forward, then stopped. At the very end of the hallway, bathed in the weak glow of our trembling lights, sat an old man in a wheelchair. He wasn't moving. His form was hunched, motionless, as if abandoned there. His head tilted slightly downward, obscuring his face. The wheels of the chair gleamed dully under the flickering light from a distant emergency exit sign. I sucked in a breath, gripping Jake's arm. "Who is that?" Jake's grip on his flashlight tightened. "I don't know." There was something profoundly wrong about him. Why would an elderly man be sitting alone in the dead of night, in a church plunged into darkness? The rest of the evacuees were back in the main hall, far from here. And yet, here he was. I swallowed hard, trying to rationalize. Maybe he'd wandered off. Maybe someone had left him there. But deep down, something told me that wasn't the case. We stepped back, sharing a look. The unspoken thought was clear. This isn't right. With shaking hands, we lifted our flashlights again. He was gone. No sound, no movement. Just an empty hallway stretching into darkness. A cold wave of terror crashed over me. There hadn't been a single noise, no creak of wheels, no shuffling of movement. Just nothing. I grabbed Jake's wrist. "We need to go, now." We turned and bolted, feet pounding against the carpet as we raced back through the darkened halls. The storm outside roared in the distance, but inside, an unnatural silence chased us, whispering just behind our ears. We reached our room, slammed the door shut, and collapsed against it, gasping for breath. Jake's mom stirred slightly in her sleep, muttering something unintelligible. We didn't wake anyone. Instead, we just sat there, staring at the door, afraid to close our eyes. The next morning, we hesitated to ask about the old man. Would anyone believe us? But as we ate breakfast in the dim light of the overcast morning, I overheard one of the church volunteers talking. They found one of the evacuees passed away in his sleep last night. she whispered. One of the older gentlemen. He used a wheelchair. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Jake and I never spoke about what we saw that night, but every now and then I dream of the hallway, the silent figure, and the overwhelming sense that we weren't supposed to see him. And when I wake up, for just a split second, I swear I can still hear the quiet creak of a wheelchair rolling down an empty hall.
And so, the shadows stretch further, and the mystery only deepens. But this is far from the end. It's merely the beginning. What lingers beyond the door? Who is whispering your name? And what is that shifting in the corner of your eye? The answers await in the next chapter of these chilling tales. Subscribe to Nightfall Crypt and hit the notification bell, because the crypt's secrets are endless and the darkness never sleeps. Until next time, stay in the light if you can.